Welcome, one and all, to the October 27th edition of Signals from Mars. I'm your host, Victor. And tonight we have the glorious countdown of albums from 1986. My patrons have voted, a few other people have voted as well. And we've come up with 52 albums to represent 1986. And let me invite. Yeah. How about let me introduce the invitees for tonight? Joining us from somewhere in California,
What?
Metal Dan.
Welcome. Thanks for joining.
Somewhere in Sweden, Johan.
Good evening, everybody.
Johan, how do you pronounce your last name?
Ederström.
Okay, there you go.
Say it again, please.
Ederström. At least tell me I'm closer than Mark Striegel saying it.
Absolutely. Always.
I think I could say Smith and I would still be closer. All right. In the UK, Mr. Patron's Pick, Jeremy Weltman.
Good evening. Good evening.
Now, this is going to be a weird one. We usually say in Utah, but Utah is gone. Yarg Metal Central is now in the famous Potato State. Mr. Brad Dahl, how are you?
Oh, thank you, Johan Ederström.
Look at that. Brad is now going to point out on the maps behind him, where all of us are located.
Metal Dan's over here. Okay. We got Johan over here. We have Jeremy right about there. And Victor. Victor, I've actually been close to Victor. It's right here.
See that?
And
All
Bilbo.
Right. Bilbo. That's how the locals actually say it, is Bilbo.
Yeah, what do they know?
Dragons. All right. And last but definitely not least, from the bourbon capital of the world, Mr. Ed the Shred Ferguson.
Oh, wow.
Right there.
Can you hear and see me okay?
Yes, we can.
All right, I got the desktop going again there. So
cool. So Ed was nice enough to put up some nice 86 flavored albums. Me being the sloth that I am, I did not. But we're going to do some rapid fire naming of albums here because how's the song go? We've got a long way to go and a short time to get there. We're going to start out at number 52 here. And just remember, folks, remember the magnitude of albums that are in front of what's here at the tail end. Usually the albums that are closer to the top have been voted on by a lot of people. And I will say that the number one album was voted on by everyone except for maybe 2 or 3 people. And it was either number 1 or 2 on the majority of their lists. So the number one is kind of a runaway. We've seen bigger gaps, but I think that you guys will be excited about the final product. There's some things out of left field here, as expected, but here we go. So let's quickly do 52, 51, and 50. At 52, we have Warlock with True as Steel. 51, Savatage, Fight for the Rock, excuse me. And at 50, Rough Cut with Wants You. All right. In the chat, we have Bill Elam and we have John Rose. Thank you guys for joining us tonight.
Looks like Ross. John Ross.
John Ross.
Do we know John?
John mentioned something today within the Signals from Mars group
Nice.
page. I forget. Oh, we have Tony as well
Hey,
in
Tony.
Barcelona, who actually voted for the rough cut. All right, so let's do the 40s real quick here. At 49, Nuclear Assault, Game Over. Emerson, Lake and Powell with Emerson, Lake and Powell. Alice Cooper with Constrictor at 47. 46, Rat with Dancing Undercover. 45, Possessed with Beyond the Gates. 44, Magnum with Vigilante. How would you pronounce Vigilante in proper English, Jeremy?
Exactly as you just said it.
Excellent.
Perfect.
40. I passed the test. 43, Agnostic Front. Cause for alarm. I wish I would pass the spelling part of it because I totally messed up spelling cause. 42, Sepultura with Morbid Visions. 41, self-titled debut by the Georgia Satellites.
Whoa.
And at 40, we can thank Steve Hoker for this one. Street Lethal by
Racer
Racer
X.
X.
Yeah.
Ooh.
There's so
Yeah.
much good stuff here that it's hard to quantify, just to say, oh, it's definitely this or that. There's so many good albums here.
That Racer X was a strong hopeful when it came out, hitting the scene with who they had for players.
Right.
And they played locally around the Southern California area a lot. And I caught them back in the day. They were going to be a big deal. And they had a cool name.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have Racer X back up there on the shelf. Not the band, the Funko Pop of the Speed Racer character. Anyway, the 30s. 39, King Diamond with Fatal Portrait. 38, Depeche Mode with Black Celebration.
What songs were on that were so good? You would know. Do you know?
Off of the Depeche Mode
Mode?
album.
Yeah.
Stripped, for example, is off of there. I think People Are People is on there.
Oh, okay. I got you now.
No, Johan is saying no. What album is People Are People on? Or am I thinking of Everything Counts is on Black Celebration?
Well, I can't remember, but
It's okay. Sorry about that. Now, Jared,
My
You didn't go metal, Dan. You just wrecked Johan.
they're getting a lot of push these days in Southern California. Depeche Mode is they're touring more and they're just having a kind of a comeback after the death of their. That's all.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All
Well,
right.
the good thing is we have the internet to find out these days.
Yeah, they're hitting. I didn't mean to stall. They're just hitting around here right now.
No. Okay, so I'm totally off here. So A Question of Time and Stripped are probably the two big songs off of that album. Black
I know
Celebration is kind of known as well. And all of these, all the ones that Stripped, Rammstein has covered that. Black Celebration, Monster Magnet has covered. So the person that actually voted for this was Ron Scalzo of Return to Earth, who I've actually had on the show. I went into discussion with him with how I think Depeche Mode is a band that heavily influenced a lot of metal bands. Part of it from the composition standpoint and part from the type of lyrics. So anyway, let's see. Let me get back into place here. 37, someone else that I interviewed, Sword with Metal Eyes. 36, from my home state. Love this band, but they were not on my list. The Smithereens with Especially for You. 35, an album I voted for and is possibly my favorite from this band's catalog. It is Queen with A Kind of Magic. I can't tell you how many times I've listened to that album. 34, with a Medal of Honor, it is TT Quick. Dan, who voted for that one?
That would be me. Yeah. Again, fell in love with the name, knew nothing about it, discovered. And I think it's nearly a perfect album.
33, Great White, Shot in the Dark, an album that more than one person voted for.
It's good. Album.
32, Flotsam and Jetsam, Doomsday for the Deceiver. 31, Vinnie Vincent, Invasion with Invasion. And at 30, Transformers, the movie soundtrack.
What?
Yes. Into the 20s we go. 29, Crimson Glory with Crimson Glory. 28. Now keep in mind that a member of another band that will appear farther up on this list appears on this album. It is Licensed to Ill by the Beastie Boys.
Yeah. Huge release at that time.
Yes, absolutely. 27, Quiet Riot with QR3.
Paul Shortino.
Paul Shortino on lead vocals there. Sean McNabb on bass with his blonde, curly poodle hair. 26, Saxon, Rock the Nations. 25, Genesis, Invisible Touch. More than one person voted on this album.
The videos were everywhere. They were touring like crazy. They were huge in the charts.
Yes, absolutely. That was a tremendous album. 24, Anthrax with Among the Living.
Yeah.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Check the date on that record.
Is it a disqualifier?
Let me see. Let's check it.
All right.
Yeah, I don't have it either.
Ooh,
85 is
March.
spreading in 87.
March.
That's
Yeah,
right.
March.
87.
March 87.
So, yeah, you have to save that one for next show.
Yeah.
We'll save that one for next year. All right. So we voted on 52 albums were voted on, 51 are legal.
So far.
Someone's asking a good question there. Can you answer that?
Yeah. All right, Will. You might be right here.
Yes, it was. It was not. No, wait. No. Wait a second. QR3 is the one, the Wild and the Young. He's right. It is Dubrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
QR.
Wait, who is that? Bill Elam?
That's Bill Elam. Thank you,
Well,
Bill.
of course he's right. Bill's always right. Jeez.
So QR is the one with Paul Shortino.
Okay.
I made the same mistake. So that QR3 is the one with the Wild and the Young, and the one with Twilight Hotel and little else. And I'm a big Quiet Riot fan, and that's not one of my more favorite albums. And that's in my broken English there. All right. 23. AC/DC, Who Made Who? Technically a greatest hits album, but AC/DC doesn't consider it that because there's two originals on there. 22. This one almost made my top 10, but it slid out in the end. It is Motorhead with Orgasmatron. 21. Billy Idol with Whiplash Smile, the first album. I believe that's the first one without Steve Stevens, isn't it?
I think you're right.
with let's see,
Yeah, who played on that?
Younger Smith. I forget his first name.
Younger.
Yeah, Whiplash Smile. No, Whiplash Smile has Steve Stevens. This is the one that has Don't Need a Gun, Forgot to Be a Lover. The one that I'm thinking of is Charmed Life, which has Mark Younger Smith.
Okay.
All right. So wow. So yeah, that was a huge album as well. That was on MTV quite a bit. Number 20. This band, a lot of people have always said, had they picked a different name, they would have been bigger. And more people probably would have gotten into them. More people that weren't caught up with the name and with the look. But I think that this first album is great. Not so big into any of their other albums, but this album may be part of a future discussion that we may have, because it's the debut album by Cinderella, Night Songs. 19. To me, this album is as good as the first 5 albums by Van Halen. It is Eat 'Em and Smile by David Lee Roth.
Wow.
The playing on this album is just ridiculous. So, just my
But you
opinion.
like it that much, but as good as all 5. That's
Yes.
a big statement you're making there.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then he had the balls to release an all Spanish version of the album.
That too.
Oh, I didn't know he did that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's some pretty janky Spanish, but it's, it's interesting, and it's Shy Boy is my go-to off of that in Spanish. Drives my wife crazy. She does not like hearing that at all. Yeah, I mean, Steve Vai playing on this is ridiculous. Billy Sheehan is great. Matt Bissonette is tremendous on it.
What about the songs?
What's that?
What about the songs?
Songs are fucking great.
Really? Okay. I guess I got to listen to it again.
Yankee Rose,
Yankee Rose is
Shy
okay.
Boy.
Shy Boy's a Talus song anyway. It's like a cover. So,
And because Van Halen never recorded any covers before.
well, that's actually a really fair statement.
All right. That's Life is also a cover. So is Tobacco Road off of it. Elephant Gun, Ladies Night in Buffalo, Bump and Grind. I think that the album is awesome, personally.
All right. I'm going to give it another listen.
My opinion. And if I wasn't a sloth, I could have pulled out the 2 copies that I have of it on vinyl behind me.
Ooh.
I wore it out, and I heard it. I've overheard it now, But yeah, I can agree. If I hadn't only worn it out,
See that?
and the Spanish version over and over.
There you go. 18. Another band that includes covers every now and then. Brad, you can hold this against them?
Of course.
It is Wasp with Inside the Electric Circus. 17. Van Halen, 5150. That to me,
That has covers?
no, but I think Eat 'Em and Smile blows, in my opinion, blows 5150 away.
All right.
I am not a fan of Hammy Sagar, so. Yes, and I owned all those albums, and I sold all those albums, except for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, with which my mother bought me for my birthday, so I couldn't part with that. Anyway, at number 16, before we get into the nitty gritty, we had Invisible Touch before, so why not Peter Gabriel with So at number 16?
Sold a lot of copies.
Look, I said hard rock and metal, but I understand why every one of these albums, the Genesis, the Peter Gabriel, the Depeche Mode, the Beastie Boys, even the Transformers, I understand why every single one of these albums is on there because they were all huge sellers. They were these were all over TV one way or another. So a lot of us were seeing a lot of these videos on MTV. But anyway, we will keep the moment where, oh shit, what just fucking happened?
We're going to keep from that moment.
No, hold on, I fucked up.
Well, while
Oh,
he's
boy.
figuring that out, today, I ask you guys, today when I was listening to 1986 albums and Wasp came on, that song, I Don't Need No Doctor,
Hmm.
do you think Blackie's still singing that song these days? Have you heard his interviews lately? How much he needs the doctors now? That'd be kind of a funny tune for him to sing these days. wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would.
I don't
would
think
be
I'd sing that if I
that's
needed the
irony.
doctor as bad as he does.
It's a great
And he
cover. That
change the lyrics to Now I Need a Doctor.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
it's a great cover though. I like that. I like that. cover.
That's a good cover of that, is it?
Yeah,
All right.
it was a big hit in the UK.
all right.
Wow. Who
So
originally did that? I know Humble Pie. That was. Did they write
I'm
that?
thinking Humble Pie. Yeah, I
They
can't.
wrote it. That's a great song.
I
Fun
think so,
song to
yeah.
play too.
Yeah, on my Humble Pie live album, it's on it, and
Well, yeah.
I think, I think they did it. Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was like an old blues song they covered. but
Well,
let's see.
maybe go further back, I suppose. Yeah.
folks, I have to say I screwed this up big time.
Oh, jeez.
So
there we
Can we
go.
start the show over?
and-
Nothing like doing live podcasting, huh, Victor?
Yeah, looks like my addition skills weren't good. And not that my addition skills were not good. It's just that I listed an album twice. So we had 50 albums on this chart. we have now eliminated Among the Living and another one which I already mentioned will be our number 8 album. So
Okay. I Don't Need No Doctor was actually written by Ashford and Simpson
Yeah.
and Joe Armstead.
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, that's what Will says there.
Yeah. I gotta hear the original. I guess Ray Charles recorded it in 1966. There you go.
Go.
All right.
All right. So
See, kids, you can learn stuff here.
That's right.
let's get on to 15. 15 is an album and a band that has come up over and over and over again with different shows like this that we've done. At 15, we have The Dark by Metal Church.
Great record.
Absolutely great.
All right.
A
14.
little too far up, I think, or down.
Too far down. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see how
I think Johan agrees.
I think that there's going to be a bigger sticking point a little up farther, Mr. Ferguson. And
Yeah,
and
you're gonna hurt
and
me, aren't you?
what's that?
You're going to hurt me here pretty soon. I can feel it.
Number 14. Look what the cat dragged in by Poison.
Yeah.
It's a perfect album. It shows my difference. I mean, I can listen to what is gonna be the number 1, and I can have this at number 2, and that's just where my mind was at the time. Is I could listen to both genres of music.
Yeah, this to me is their best album by far. I listened to this album today for the first time in a really long time. When this came out, I played the crap out of this. The title track to me is probably the best thing they've ever recorded. and the title track is probably their closest attempt at doing anything remotely close to like early Motley Crue. So that's probably why I love it so much. But yeah, similar to what you're saying, Dan, I was kind of in the same boat. Ed, at 13 though, Fast
Nice.
with the Trick or Treat soundtrack.
Time to put that one on here next week.
Yeah, absolutely. on Tuesday, that's a mandatory play.
It is.
Yeah, when that one came out, it was in heavy rotation for me as well too. I overplayed that album. I think I was so proud that Fastway was on a movie soundtrack, be as it is. But still, it was the music was great for that release.
Yeah. And the thing with that movie too, I mean, you had Ozzy in it, you had Gene Simmons, and I remember people saying, "Oh, well, the movie sucks." And I was like, "I don't care. This is, the type of music that I listen to. These are
Movie's fun.
these are people, Ozzy and Gene Simmons and these are people that I've loved for years. So something that actually represents this genre of music that I love and it's in the movies and whatnot. I don't care how bad it is. I love it.
That was
It
cool
could have
as hell
been.
when it came out.
What's that, Ed? Repeat that.
I said it was cool as hell when it came out. When we were teenagers, I was.
Yeah. Dan, go ahead.
Yeah. Besides, you had AC/DC Who Made Who soundtrack, but otherwise, all movie soundtracks before that were never what we listened to. It was the other types of music. So now there was this, and I think that's why I championed it so much.
Yeah.
I agree.
At number 12, Europe with the Final Countdown.
Absolutely.
Jeremy's
It's
happy with
such
that?
a great album. Such a great album. I mean, it might be poppy, it's the softer side of rock, but and we know that the title track overwhelms the whole album because it was so famous. But it's got so many hits on it. I mean, Rock the Night's on it, Carrie's on it, Cherokee's on it, and it's just a fantastic album. It's real 80s rock by one of Sweden's greatest bands. And Johan's going to back me up on that, I know.
Absolutely, Jeremy. It's a fantastic album, and it's, probably one of Sweden's proudest moments. So it's, absolutely great.
Yeah, and if I can add the same thing, Europe plays, the Monsters of Rock cruise here and there, and they do okay. But then I saw the latest from Sweden Rock when they played, and man, it's just this massive crowd that's into Europe. They are so relevant today, even more. So good on them. That's amazing.
The other thing to consider, and this is the same thing kind of happens with Kiss as well, in that you have a lot of people like Michael Amott who swear by this album, where you have a lot of extreme metal fans that don't like something like Europe or the Final Countdown or Kiss. I know a lot of fans of black metal that hate Kiss, but yet all the bands that actually were kind of the cornerstone of that subgenre all love Kiss. So it's funny to me that, Europe, how much the Amott brothers love John Norm's playing and how it's been an influence on them. So, all right, moving on to 11. Except with Russian roulette. Johan, you've got a disgruntled look.
Yeah. My number one. It could have been my number 3. In another week, but
Right.
This album is fantastic. It's both hard and it has melodies in the chorus. I think it's amazing album. And you know, back then, an album that I played a lot of air guitar too. So yeah,
Back
I-
then, have you retired the air guitar?
no,
Okay.
no, of course not. No, but it is great album. With the combinedness with the hardness and the choruses, I still find it one of the best heavy metal albums of all times. So
Wow.
I had it as high as number 2, so
Ah,
I can
good to hear,
agree
good
with
to
you,
hear.
Johan.
yeah,
From Monster Man, there's just sing along chanting
Mhm.
songs that are just heaven is hell. It's great.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. And as great as Metal Heart is, that one was a little more radio friendly compared to Balls to the Wall. And this one, it reminded me, listening to these songs today, has that darker feel that Balls to the Wall had.
Yeah.
But like you guys said, it still has those catchy melodies and choruses, and that's I agree. It wasn't that high in my list, but it was right there in the middle somewhere, maybe around 5. Great record. I agree with your all's description.
Maybe the album title held him back. Maybe the album cover held him back. But other than that, it should be. It's that good.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So we now hit the top 10. At number 10, we have a band named after a famous inventor,
Mm-hmm.
Tesla, with Mechanical Resonance. Now, this album for me is one that I jumped on late. I knew all the quote unquote hits off of here, but at my last job in the States, one of the bands that we played quite a bit was Tesla. So I got to learn Easy Come, Easy Go, Changes, and a few other things off of this. This album had a lot of songs that rock radio played at the time. At least Eddie Trunk was playing a lot of this, and now I'm drawing a blank as to what the metal show was in New York now. But anyway, they played quite a bit off of this as well. So this album was, this band was big. I think this was one of these albums where I taped a lot of these songs off of the radio. So I never got the album until later on, but still enjoy it. Jeremy, what do you have to say about Mechanical Resonance?
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I mean, it's I just think it's a band and an album that I've got into sort of later on, really. I mean, at the time, I think when they came out, they didn't make such an impression, partly over the UK. I think it's a big sort of US UK thing. They've never been a massive band over in the UK, but I think it's a really great album. There's a lot of good songs on there. They show a lot of talent. The songwriting's very good, and it's it's couched in that sort of 80s sound, but it's they've got a little bit of a harder edge than some of the bands that were around at the time. Proper hard rock band, and I love it. I think it's great.
They were pretty big in the States for a while. Unfortunately, it was for a cover song and for a ballad, which kind of, to me, not tarnished the band, but I think people were getting into the band for quote unquote the wrong reasons. Because I mean, I was playing with friends back then and trying out stuff for like cover bands and whatnot. And hey, let's do Love Song by Tesla. And I'm like, really? Out of all the songs that they fucking have, which are great rock songs, we're gonna play like their one fucking ballad instead? Well, all the girls love it. I'm like, you're wearing a wig and you're like 50 back then. You know, you're not going to have a problem with the girls coming up to you, my friend. So anyway, wow. Yeah. So there's that. Anyway, moving on. At number 9, it is Queensryche, Rage for Order. People seem to be agreeing with this. Who wants to mention something about Rage for Order? Brad, you had this on your list, didn't you?
I believe that was my number 1, wasn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah. Yeah, this album, this is back in the day when you could do an album that didn't sound like the album before it, which this didn't. This is a really hard turn for them. It's one of the first albums that really sounded digital. I mean, there was a lot of samples and stuff, and it was just big and just metal sounding, and there's great songs on there. I love that album.
Anyone else?
Walk in the Shadows. Come on.
Yeah.
You can't beat that.
Yeah, you're right. I think Queensryche are a very different sounding band to some of these other bands that we've got on the list, aren't they? They seem quite different.
Nobody sounded like Queensryche back then.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah.
They were like, especially this album. This album came out and it's like, what the hell is this? I mean, this is so different than the album before it. And yeah, it's great. And it still holds up today. Sounds great.
Walk in the Shadows, covered by Arch Enemy.
Yeah, great
all right.
song.
Number 8. Kind of spoiled it already. Eat 'em and Smile, David Lee Roth. Brad, as good as the first 5 Van Halen albums with covers and all.
All right.
Give me a bottle of
I'm
anything and a glazed donut to go. How about that?
Well, the videos, yeah. The videos were spectacular.
My doctor says I have to take a laxative. Not in my store, you don't.
Yeah, the videos were fantastic. The videos are better than the album.
As a kid, the intros to Yankee Rose and Going Crazy, we had those things memorized. We watched those videos. We had them on VHS. We recorded them off of MTV, and we watched them over and over again. And I'm sure that if I were to watch it now, I could probably still recite the beginning to both of those videos. And a lot of it is not politically correct at all. So, especially with the fabulous Picasso brothers. Anyway.
With proven quality at lower than low prices, Kroger brand products make you feel like you're winning.
Number 7.
Sorry.
Number 7. We were receiving some signals from Mars there.
See what you did.
At number 7, we will. The alarm is about to go off here. We have Rain and Blood.
Number 7.
Number 7.
I'll take that.
Okay.
Yeah. I've been preparing myself for that. I knew it wasn't going to be number 1 like it should be. But I'll take that. Yeah, that right there is my number 1. Even though Peace Sells and Master of Puppets came out that year, each one of those records was just another level of intensity. And once I heard Rain and Blood, boy, I was just completely sold on that, could not stop listening to it. And that was around the same time that I was starting to drive and had a lot more freedom to listen to what I wanted. And just wore the hell out of that cassette, I guess, back then. I remember I bought the album, cassette, and CD all at the same time. And a guy from school was working at the record store and told me about a drawing they were having for a CD player. And so I put my name in there. After I told him I didn't have a CD player, I was just buying that for the heck of it. And I think he might have helped me out because he called me later and said I had won.
Oh, wow.
So I got Rain and Blood and a free CD player, my first one. I'll
Wow.
never forget that. And
That's
listen to all these records we're talking about on CD from that point on. That was the fun thing to do, was to go back out and buy some of those cassettes on CD
Yeah.
after that.
Rain and Blood, for you, being the thrash connoisseur that you are, would you consider it the definitive thrash album?
Yes, sir. Yeah, perfect from start to finish. It's just there's a lot to say about every song on that record too. Especially, you know, when you're angry teenager with all that energy. That album was just great, especially, you know, to listen to with your friends. Me and my friends would get in the car and drive around smoking and listening to Rain and Blood as loud as we could, and just, you know, talking about Dave Lombardo's drum riffs on and on. And yeah, just listening to, I was really impressed by Kerry King the most, I think. I loved his image and the nail armbands that he had, you know. His look just was as awesome as could be. And I love every single song on that record. Everyone just gets me going. And I especially love, as great as the main tunes are, the Altar of Sacrifice, Jesus Saves section. It's just one of the greatest moments of thrash metal history of all time. I mean, that just rips your face off. It's sad now that they don't play that. Like on Decade of Decadence back then, they were still playing some of those tracks, but you don't hear them play those anymore, which is sad. But and then also, if you haven't seen it, they have that concert where they where they played the whole album, you know, a few years ago, and did the Raining Blood literally on the stage. You've seen that before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's fun to watch too.
That was produced by Kevin Shirley of Iron Maiden fame.
Yeah.
And he actually had to replace all the music for that part, because with all the goop falling on them,
Uh-huh.
the guitar started to sound like shit, and you could hear stuff bouncing off the drums and whatnot. So he just went and recorded them playing the song at another show, and just swapped one in for the other.
It sure looked cool.
Yeah.
I bet
Yeah.
it was fun.
Yeah. So we do have Edgar Winterson checking in with us again this week. He asks, what happened to the CD player?
Well, that's a good question. After running away from home and at times not having money and a place to live, I probably sold it for something to smoke at some point. But
There you go. And he follows up with, how can you be so angry when you won a CD player?
I wasn't angry about that.
Yeah.
Not at all. Although it didn't work very long. It worked for about 6 months or so, and then I had to take it in for repair. And back then, a repair was probably $90, I think it was.
Right.
And I was making $3.15 working at Kentucky Fried Chicken an hour. So it took a lot of my money.
Could imagine. All right. So, all right. We have Anthony Mackie joining us. Anthony, you're giving us the Black Album, AC/DC, Spinal Tap. So let's see here. So beating Rain and Blood out. And actually, let's see if we can get Well, Anthony had voted pretty high for Rain and Blood, but beating Rain and Blood by 1 point. Let me get back to my screen here with all the album covers. Slippery When Wet by Bon Jovi.
Yeah, that hurts a bit.
So somewhere Kerry King just threw up.
Quite right too.
This was, when I saw this coming about, I was like, no, this can't happen. I go, because this is going to be the big bone of contention with this list, is that Slippery When Wet ekes it out over top of Slayer. So Slippery When Wet, who wants to talk about this one?
Absolutely brilliant album. I mean, I'm putting myself back into '86 when I was getting into this sort of stuff at the time. You know, I was getting into hair metal, and as we know, hair metal at the time was quite soft. But it was, I mean, you cannot knock the singles that they brought off this album, because they are absolute top belters. They sold millions and millions of them. And so people cannot be wrong. You know, whatever you think of Bon Jovi now, and I don't think anything of them now. I hate them. But I love this album, and I love New Jersey. But this album in particular, I mean, Living on a Prayer, You Give Love a Bad Name, Wanted Dead or Alive, they are 3 absolute classic rock tracks that would be on any playlist. You know, they've been played to death, that we don't even listen to them properly anymore. They're fantastic. You can sing along to them. They're in your head. You all know them.
You think Ed sings along to Wanted Dead or Alive every time it comes on?
I think Ed does occasionally. I think Ed is in the shower. He's in the shower. He's in the bath, and it will come into his head now and again.
We're spending too much time together. You've got me figured out too well. I just try to look tough with the Slayer talk.
See that? Really, on the wall in front of Ed is Bon Jovi, Poison, and Slaughter.
Yeah, right behind those records, right behind my Tough Guy records, I've got Bon Jovi. You don't see that there.
There you go.
I will admit, okay, I did have a Bon Jovi T-shirt and a Metallica Master of Puppets T-shirt, because during these years, I was still listening to these hard rock albums. '86, though, I think was a year when a big change in a lot of that sound really took off. You know, it started in '85, like with Motley Crue and such, going more rhythm and bluesy, I think, less heavy metal, less hard rock. So a lot of these records were, you still had a lot of the darker sounding rock records, which I liked. You know, I was listening to that Great White, Shot in the Dark a lot. Different things that were, popular, but not too, dancey, like everything started to become like Def Leppard did,
Right.
The next year. After this year, things just became, a lot more poppy and a lot more, and I think just, as '87 went, or during '87, that's when I just really became disillusioned with everything I was hearing, and just was only listening to thrash and death metal from that point on. So during this year, though, I was still listening to both things.
The river water and the ocean water were mixing together at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So real quickly here, before we jump on into the top 5, at 10, we had Tesla, Mechanical Resonance. At 9, Queensryche with Rage for Order. David Lee Roth with Eat 'Em and Smile at 8. Slayer with Rain and Blood at 7. And Bon Jovi with Slippery When Wet at 6. At 5, a lot of people crap on this album, but it seems like a lot of people here really like this album. So that's why it got as far as 5. Turbo by Judas Priest. So I took a look at this today when determining my final order, and there were a few things that I was bandying about, and this album ended up making it in under the radar in my top 10 because it does have like 5 or 6 songs that I listened to quite a bit. Whoa!
There goes Jeremy.
There
Hope
goes
Jeremy's
Jeremy.
okay.
Jeremy just went running for Turbo, I think. But anyway, so yeah, so Fueled for Life, the double live album, I had that recorded off of MTV, and so all the singles off of this were on that double live album. You had Out in the Cold, you had Parental Guidance, you had Private Property, you had Locked In, and you had Turbo Lover mixed in with all the other Judas Priest classics. So I listened to that and I watched that video a lot because it was one of the only, concert videos that we had back then. We'd stay up late and record the MTV concerts, and you'd hope that something was remotely hard rock or metal to record, and it wasn't the Cockatoo Twins or Spandau Ballet that week. So when Judas Priest came on, I freaked the hell out. We had same VHS, had Fueled for Life, and it had Empire Strikes Back on it. So it was a good 4 hours worth of material that we'd watch straight. Anyway, anyone else want to mention something about Turbo?
Ooh.
Yeah, I'll say.
All right.
Oh, he's back.
He's back.
Okay. Whew. Thought maybe that laxative kicked in. Not in my store. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly. I mean, especially lyric-wise, it was kind of on the cornball side, but
Yeah.
I mean, musically, it's pretty solid. It's fun to listen to. It's a really good sounding album. I think it's just that at that point, people didn't want this from Priest. Well,
Right.
the average Priest fan, I guess. But I enjoy it. I like listening to it. I mean,
I think a lot of that, though, I think you just hit the nail on the head. You come from Screaming for Vengeance, Defenders of the Faith. Even if you want to go back to as far as British Steel and some of the 70s albums, I think Turbo really threw a lot of people for a loop. It probably has a lot more to do with the production and them going from more of a Bon Jovi, Motley Crue sound that annoyed people because they were Judas Priest and they didn't have to do that. But
yeah, there's also an image thing going on here too. You talk about that concert. I mean, think about Rob had, kind of
Long
long,
hair. Yeah.
and it was all curly in the back, like permed a little. Well, KK was permed out. They all wore outfits, that were made for him, special made for him. And I think you saw that with some of the other bands too. I mean, Queensryche, look at the hair on those guys on that Rage for Order album. That's ridiculous. I mean, they look like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
I mean, I that didn't last past that album, but there was something going on in '86 where image-wise guys were really, really poofing it out, even in the hard rock world.
The Chris DeGarmo's poodle or spiral curls or whatever the hell you call that, and parted on the side.
And the outfits they had made for that, it was just silly as can be. I don't know, Slayer, they probably didn't do that, did they?
No. But Slayer did wear eyeliner early on, so
Yeah, in their first pictures they had it.
yeah.
Trying to look evil though.
Oh,
So they say.
that's why I wear eyeliner.
Tough guy.
Yeah. I didn't get into Queensryche until Operation Mindcrime. Sorry, when MTV started playing the Rage for Order stuff, I'm like, what the hell is this?
Exactly.
What band is this?
Yeah, '86 was kind of a weird moment in time for some of these bands, but Anyway, back to Turbo. Jeremy, the mention of Turbo sent you running.
Yeah.
When you're back.
Yeah,
Do
yeah.
you have any comments about
Yeah, I
Turbo?
think it's a good album. I think on reflection, listening to it again now, I like it. It's got that sort of 80s sound to it, hasn't it? It's a bit different to what the normal Priest is, but it's got great songs on it, and it's certainly not one of the worst Priest albums ever. So yeah, I like it.
All right.
There you go.
Number 4. An album that I still listen to a lot nowadays. And speaking of weird outfits, because the main man behind this band was wearing muumuus and looked like Mrs. Roper more than more than anyone remotely close in hard rock or metal. It is Ozzy Osbourne with The Ultimate Sin.
Nice.
So this album, we played the crap out of it. I still play it quite frequently. I love Jake E. Lee's playing on this. I know that a lot of people don't like this album. I know Bob Daisley has come out and said that this is his least favorite album that he's ever done with Ozzy. But I think Jake's playing on this is really, really good. There's a lot of good soloing and riffs in general. The song that always stands out to me off of this is the song Never. I think the soloing on that track is just ridiculously good. Just my opinion, but when I want to hear a great Jake E. Lee solo, yes, everyone goes for Bark at the Moon and a lot of that stuff off of that album. But I think on Ultimate Sin, he came into his own a little more and kind of did get a little flashier with his playing and showed what he was capable of. So it's unfortunate.
There's no bad Jake E. Lee solos.
What's that?
There's no bad guitar solo by Jake
Yeah.
on either one of those.
Ed's not wrong. Yeah, his playing is brilliant. That's a really good album. I don't know. That album just felt better to me than Bark at the Moon for some reason. I mean, it was the production on it. But the songs, I thought the songs were better. I thought they were, I don't know, more better written.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a lot better than people give it credit for.
Yeah.
This all this came out when I was 16, and I got a job at Kentucky Fried Chicken, and I could walk to work in about 30 minutes, and I had a Walkman, so I would always walk instead of having my mom take me or drive. It was before I got a car, so that I could listen to my tapes, and I was listening to that one every day. After that one came out, I can't remember what time of the year that came out, but
and I bet on those nights when you worked, the chicken tasted a little better.
it sure did. That was the best chicken anybody had. So it added a little more than the 11 herbs and spices.
There you go.
Ooh.
The metal spirit.
Cool. So
But yeah, the outfits, Victor, you're not wrong on that either. The stuff these guys wore on that tour were just ridiculous. More sequins and yeah.
Jake was wearing a pirate shirt reminiscent of the Slade picture that Jeremy sent around today. Looked like Jerry Seinfeld's pirate shirt. If you guys have ever seen that episode of
Puffy
Seinfeld.
shirt.
Yeah.
For me, that album, Joan here, it felt like an extremely fresh album. I was 14 in Sweden, and when that album came out, it was, it felt like this is the newest thing from America, from United States. It's like the freshest metal that you can hear. So for me, that album is magic.
Cool.
From start to finish.
It does have a big sound compared to a lot of albums that were released then, I think. Johan's right. That's a good point.
I will say there's one song that I always skip on this album, and it happens to be the big
Ooh.
hit. "Shot in the Dark" to me is just never done it for me.
Yeah, of course.
It it kind of, to me, honestly, I don't feel like that fits the rest of the album.
No, it doesn't. But it was a big song for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's you just got a beef with Phil Soussan. That's your issue.
No, even way back then, I've never been a ballad guy, so
I don't know. That wasn't a ballad.
yeah, that's kind of dirty.
I'd rather hear Great White's "Shot in the Dark" than Ozzy "Shot in the Dark"
Ooh,
from
There
the
you
same
go.
year.
Dan is right about that. I'm with you, Dan.
So
God, that's
Great
a
song, Dan.
thanks.
Great song.
In '86, Ozzy was on tour and they had a support band, and that little support band is going to be the #1 '86 album coming up.
We're jumping ahead of ourselves here.
I see it.
Edgar's bad at what Dan said there.
There's 3 albums to go, and we know what band usually ends up taking the cake. So I don't want to play the
Well,
role.
they get the cake.
I don't want to play the role of spoiler here, but 3 huge albums. At number 3, once again behind Mr. Ferguson. Which one of those 2 albums is it? Rain and Blood already came out. At 3, we have
Yeah.
East
That's what I thought.
by Megadeth. This album to me was a big deal. This is my first intro to thrash. Peace Cells.
What a great intro.
Yeah, and it was
it Wake Up Dead or another one like
Wake Up
Peace
Dead.
Cells?
It was
Yeah.
it was Wake Up Dead, and I always reference this. It was because of WrestleMania 3. It was because of Alice Cooper accompanying Jake the Snake Roberts to the ring, and Alice Cooper cutting a promo, name dropping both Megadeth and Anthrax. So my neighbor bought Peace Cells as a result. And just hearing Wake Up Dead for the first time in his garage was one of these, you now have the emoji with the head blowing
Yeah.
up. It was that. It was,
Yes, it was.
what the hell is this? Especially when you get to the end of the song and the song just changes up. That could have been a completely different song. It's like, wait, did they start a new song? No, this is still part of Wake Up Dead. What? It is? And then the soloing starts at the end of the song. Like, what the hell is this? It was the perfect storm. And then The Conjuring, and then the quote unquote title track. And then what sealed the deal for me was Devil's Island. What a side 1 to any album. I like side 1 a lot more than side 2. Not to say that side 2 sucks, but side 1 is just an avalanche of music. It is just tremendous. So, Ed, Peace Cells.
Yeah, I put this one number 3, but I didn't really know how to say whether this or, Metallica beat out for me, because they're just both of them are so great, and I listen to both of them multiple times a year. This one I ended up putting at 3, I think, because of the one cover tune.
Okay.
I Ain't Superstitious. Yeah.
Stevie Wonder song.
Yeah, that I put it number 3 because of that. It got just one little point less for that, even though that's that can be a okay song. I don't skip the song when I'm listening to the record, but I would have rather have heard another Bad Omen type tune or something.
Right.
But yeah, just like you said, it blows you away the first time you hear this album. And the more you listen to it, the more you're blown away by the playing of everybody in that band. And I love side 2 just as much as I love side 1. That Good Morning Black Friday and Bad Omen, that's another awesome moment of thrash metal history. It just doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah.
Just awesome stuff. Never gets old. I miss Sam Garlson too. Did I say his name right?
Gar
The old
Sanderson.
brother. Yeah, Garlson. I said it backwards there. It's this
Yeah.
Elijah Craig I'm drinking. Sorry.
See, my hammy Sagar was on purpose. Yours wasn't.
Your subliminal messaging there. Yeah.
There you go.
I had one of my favorite tracks of all time from Megadeth is "Hook and Mouth" on this album.
Hook and
Dan,
Mouth is off of So Far
sorry,
So Good,
buddy.
So What?
Am I on the wrong album?
Yes,
you're
you
talking about.
Oh, we're in Peace Cells. Oh,
That's right.
He sells, yeah. But
and I haven't been drinking. Or I should be drinking.
the Hangar 18 single actually has both Hook and Mouth and The Conjuring. So there you go. Close enough. All right. Anyone else want to say something about Peace Cells, or shall we move on to number 2?
Yeah,
Yeah, let's see if Edgar Winter's son is right about this.
Oh, let's see. Edgar Winterson.
Edgar's going to be sad, I think.
Spoiler, Iron Maiden is number 2, King Diamond number 1. Edgar, you joined us late. King Diamond is number 37.
Why?
Yeah. Because not enough people voted for it.
Ah, okay. Mhm.
Let's see. So let me get back to the screen here. Yeah. So there's 2 big albums left. Edgar Winterson seems to think it's Iron Maiden. Saying shenanigans.
If
Metal Dan is saying that it's Master of Puppets.
that's number 1.
General consensus. Jeremy, what do you think number 2, number 1 is?
I think Puppets is number 1.
Brad?
well, I mean, it'd be very strange for us to not have Iron Maiden be number 1, so I'm going to stick with Iron Maiden at number 1.
Ed?
I would say Master of Puppets, but with this group, I won't be surprised if it's Iron Maiden.
It has to be. Although we let some outsiders vote on this one, though. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Ooh.
Johan?
Come on, Victor.
Master of Puppets or Somewhere in Time as number 1?
Well, I'm hoping for the Swedish band Treat, but probably not. So no, I'm hoping for Master because Metallica is. We have talked about them enough, so I'm hoping for Treat.
Treat.
Edgar is saying American Bias. Edgar, Iron Maiden has won 1981, 1982, 1983, 1984. Did not win 85 because they released Live After Death and because we don't count live albums. The greatest hits, we try not to. So there is no American bias when it comes to any of these lists. Quite the opposite. We could say there's a British bias. So at number 2, arguably one of the greatest album covers of all time. You can say it about both of these albums.
Oh, golly.
Oh, we're stretching this one out pretty long.
There you are.
Number 2,
You need a drop.
from the coast of gold to the 7 seas, it is Iron Maiden.
Oh,
wow.
In time.
There we go.
Oh.
This is an album. All right. So, in hindsight, is it one of my favorite Iron Maiden albums?
No.
No. At the time, much like what Ed is saying, we played the ever living shit out of this album. We absolutely loved it. And it is the first full album by Iron Maiden that I got to listen to, which made me instantly, as soon as I stepped on Spanish soil and I got money to buy cassettes, I went and bought Peace of Mind and Live After Death. So, somewhere in time, no, I would say the catalyst is the Masters of Metal compilation, which had Run to the Hills. But my cousin, Gabriel the Metal Dentist, also a patron, him getting Somewhere in Time is my real jump off point for my love for Iron Maiden. So, is it a brilliant album? No. Is it a good album? Yes. Would I take it over Book of Stools and Shit Jitsu and A Matter of Life and Death? And let's put it this way: out of the original classics up until Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, it's probably my least favorite out of all of those. Possibly Brave New World goes above them, but nothing that came out after Seventh Son outside of Brave New World, I think, is better than Somewhere in Time. It still has good music on it. I think the production kind of sucks on it, especially with the guitars, but I still think it's a good album. Brad, you said that you thought it would be number one. What do you think of this album?
I pretty much agree with you. It's I mean I played the heck out of it when I got it, and I loved it and enjoyed it. But it wasn't. I don't think it was as good as the ones before it,
Right.
or even Seven. I thought Seventh Son was much better.
Yeah, me too.
I enjoyed that one a lot better. So you and I are kind of on the same page here. But it was a great album. I didn't get to see him on this tour though. So an interesting thing, when they played Salt Lake City, they didn't play an arena like they had before. They played a convention hall
Okay.
kind of thing. It was so it wasn't as big of a show. Although I believe they did tour with a pretty big setup, and of course they had custom made outfits too, because it was '86. They had to have all the, all of that stuff. So I don't know. Anybody here see him on this tour?
Yeah.
Yeah. What'd you think, Dan?
Vinnie Vincent opened, and that was a Scream.
That's right.
Yeah, I saw the show a couple times. They didn't tour this album enough. They didn't record it video-wise enough. There's some stuff out there, but there's not the full. And now they kind of bring it back this tours and kind of work off of it. So brilliant album cover, and very fun live show, especially after the previous tour. And I like many of those tracks to be hearing them live from this album, but Victor summed it up the best. Go ahead, Johan. You had something to say.
I saw them as well on this tour. I think this is probably my first big concert that I saw. Iron Maiden in November, Gothenburg. Wasp were opening up, and it was magic. To see Maiden in Gothenburg is special, and Wasp was also a huge band in Sweden. So for me, this night was magic. It was, you can see it on YouTube. It's a fantastic show. And I think that this one is one of my top 5 memories of all time, to see Maiden on this tour. And the sound, as we were speaking of, were, I know, synthetic and so, but it felt so fresh back then. Now it's different, but then it felt fresh. it felt like Maiden was developing into the next level. So uh, I cherish this album so much, and I love it. To hear them opening up with Caught Somewhere in Time at Sweden Rock this summer, where I mean, my eyes went wet. So yeah, I really like this album. Yeah, thank you.
All right. And this is also the album that started to push Adrian and Bruce away. So I'm not sure if that maybe had something to do with the not being recorded on tour or something along those lines. I know that there were pictures of Bruce out there where he had a half-shaven face, and with his interviews, he wasn't the most pleasant person at the time. So I don't know if that played into it. And obviously, Seven Sun was then Adrian Smith's last album for some time, and Bruce didn't last that much longer afterwards.
That just probably was road wear of just doing it too much. Ego.
Yeah, a lot of ego, a lot of Steve Harris not wanting to relinquish writing,
Yeah.
wanting to have more of his songs on the albums because it was his band, and
Yeah.
so on and so forth. And those egos clash.
And Bruce had material in his head that he was writing already, and it
Yeah.
soon. So yeah.
So at number one, well, before we get there, let's do top five real quickly here. We had Priest with Turbo, Ozzy with Ultimate Sin, Megadeth with P-Cells, But Who's Buying, Iron Maiden with Somewhere in Time. And if you look at that, if we were biasing anything, the top five, three of the bands are British and two are American. So, and if we look at the entire top 15 here, Metal Church American, Poison American, Fastway British, Europe Swedish, except German, Tesla American, Queensryche American, David Lee Roth American, Slayer American, Bon Jovi American. But then the nitty gritty is 3 of 5 are British bands. So, and one could say that Megadeth and Metallica are very influenced by British bands. So, Master of Puppets, number one.
What's the point difference between 1 and 2? Do you kind of have that?
Oh yeah. There's a huge difference. It's 16 points.
Okay.
It's a lot. Just to give you guys an idea, there's 16 points between 1 and 2. There's 13 points between 2 and 3. There's 9 points between 3 and 4. And then there's 30 points between 4 and 5. So, and that generally happens. A lot of people vote for the first few albums, and then there's a point somewhere in the top 10 where there's a huge drop off. So, Master of Puppets, who wants to say something about Master of Puppets? Ed, I'm sure you're dying to say something.
Yeah, I remember this album was kind of where the Metallica family really started to build. You remember we talked about Ride the Lightning before, and I loved that instantly. But when I would play it for my friends, even some of my heavy metal friends, especially when they heard Fight Fire with Fire, they didn't like it. And I think they didn't pay much attention to Metallica some because of that. But then when this was released, I remember buying this and Twisted Sister Come Out and Play, I think came out at the same time. And I took them both home and I listened to the Twisted Sister first, and I was kind of disappointed in the sound of that because that was another record kind of going in a more commercial direction. And then I put in Master of Puppets, and I don't think I listened to the Twisted Sister much anymore after that. But and then I just, noticed more and more people becoming Metallica fans after this. And I think that tour they did with Ozzy that year helped a lot too.
Right.
And so that was Master of Puppets is what took them to that new level, whole new fan base, and it just exploded from there. But it makes sense why. I mean, the music on that record is just every song is amazing. It's perfect from start to finish, and it's not just thrash metal. It's heavy metal and thrash metal. It's got something in there for everybody to enjoy. And it's got Cliff Burton, rest in peace, Cliff.
This album obviously it's number one here. I've heard a lot of people, a lot of famous people, greatest metal album of all time, greatest thrash album of all time. You obviously think Rain and Blood, Rain and Blood is better than this.
Yeah, Rain and Blood is, more of a pure thrash metal record from start to finish. Metallica is definitely thrash metal during these years, but they have a little more variety to their sound.
Yeah, I mean, you look at something like Sanitarium, and that's, a borderline ballad, especially in
the thing that should not be, it's kind of slow and sludgy throughout. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what thrash metal is, though. It's taking you in all those dynamic directions. It's throwing everything into the pot and thrashing it around. Yeah. And that Rain and Blood for me, though, is just the perfect representation of that. But this album I still listen to all the time, every year. And a fun album to play guitar-wise, too.
Johan, how about for you, Master of Puppets?
Well, I bought the record the same week it came out in Sweden. It was good, but to be honest, I wasn't completely ready for that kind of hard music. So I think it's probably lasted for a couple of months. Then it was the best record I ever heard. But at first it was a bit hard. I was back then too much into the big choruses and the melodies. But now it is completely. It's a complete record. It's absolutely fantastic. But I remember it wasn't when I bought it. It wasn't 10 out of 10. Now it is. But it took me a couple of months to get to that point.
Okay.
That's what I was saying. Kind of, I think a lot of my friends or people I knew back then were just kind of hit them a bit too strong at first. But then as Metallica became more popular with Master of Puppets and that tour they did, and they were hearing other songs that weren't in the speed of Fight Fire with Fire or Battery, then they started paying a little more attention, getting a little more hooked. And then as time went on, people started liking the thrashier stuff too.
Cool. Dan, anything to say about Master of Puppets?
It's a perfect album. In '86, this album comes out, and I bought it the day it came out and fell in love with it immediately. The sound was perfect pitch. Everything mixing was absolutely perfect. It wasn't muddy. It was clear. It was heavy. It was what I wanted at the time. but what a range to be listening from Bon Jovi to Metallica in the same year, going to the same concerts, and it all just worked for me. The thing that I notice now is in FM radio in 1986, we had a local radio station called KNAC out of Long Beach, California, that would play the songs. You'd hear it on the radio, and you get it because we were using cassettes at the time, and I'd get all excited because Metallica's on the radio. But regular FM radio wouldn't play it at all; they'd ignore it. Now here we are in 2023, and of course, it doesn't hurt that they were in a recent Netflix thing. But more of these tracks from this album are played now regularly, maybe as our generation is at that age now, and this music is now more common now, and couldn't get a damn bit of airplay back in 1986. That's what I gotta say.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. What made you buy it on the first day? Was it airplay? Was it just the first two albums or seeing them at a show?
Yeah, this was the first time I saw them on tour, but I already knew about Five Fire with Fire. I knew about the previous album, and I think we must have gotten some sneak peeks. We did on KNAC at the time. This is going to be coming up, so they were pumping it. So to be listening to local FM radio, and we got lucky to have KNAC in our lives for that little bit. So they played songs off of that, so that instantly went out and bought it. Absolutely, and I was working at a record store. So what else are you going to do?
Jeremy, how about you? Anything to say about Master of Puppets?
Yeah, it was a little bit like Ed's Friends, really. I was, it took me a while to get into this album, and I probably didn't like it when it first came out. I was really the kid who was into hair metal at the time, so I was going down the supermarket looking for hairspray and big boots and all that sort of stuff. And
You have a
so
picture of that,
Metallica
Jeremy?
were, I could, yeah, no,
Too bad.
but I wasn't into Metallica at all, but I got into them later, obviously, and worked my way back a bit, like as you were saying. What I would say about it is that the one song on the album that I still love today is the one that I think every time I've seen them live is the best song that they ever play, and it's Master of Puppets. I mean, whenever they play that song live, it's absolutely killer. It's just something about that riff as they go into it. But I think Johan sort of mentioned this earlier. The balance on the album is really right as well. They've got there's no poor song on the album, and I think it's a really well balanced album. It may not be their best album, but it's certainly it's up there, and it's it's a fantastic album. Great cover. And it's, it sort of blends that thrash and melody, which I think makes them into such a star band. If you're going to be a great act and sell to many people, you've got to get the balance right, and they seem to do it.
So Edgar Winterson is saying David Lee Travis refused to play it on Radio 1.
Yeah, Dave Lee Travis, I know him. Yeah, I remember him. Big beard and mustache from the 70s and 80s. Well, they used to refuse to play a lot on Radio 1. Sex Pistols and all, and everything else.
Brad, anything to say about Master of Puppets?
No, I think you guys have covered it all. And yeah. I did see him on that tour. Warming up for Ozzy, and so yeah.
And you've listened to that album. This isn't like Back in Black.
AC/DC.
Okay. No, I've not sat down and listened to it.
You a copy of this too?
I've not listened to it start to finish, so I need to.
I shared that comment with my wife, and even she was shocked. He had never listened to Back in Black all the way through, and she said, "Who is this guy?"
Yeah, I know. Well,
you better put that on your list.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to listen to this.
I love
the only
Brad.
Metallica album I've listened to start to finish is the first one.
Sorry, Brad. I love you anyways. It's all good. It was just a shocker. Wow.
I know. Well, yeah, I don't know why. Maybe the the whole thing of seeing them before they were signed and not being that impressed then kind of worked against me. I don't know. I need to. I was a bit of a snob when I was young. Yeah.
No, I wouldn't.
No,
I wouldn't say
totally.
that.
Totally. So, but yeah, the beautiful thing is I can still listen to this stuff now. I did listen to the whole David Lee Roth album though, and I don't know, guy, the vinyl version of that was so dull. There was no highs in it. It was really hard. It was really a hard listen for me. So I did listen to the whole thing. I was like, guy, this is not. I expected more. Maybe that was the problem. My expectations were. See, that's one of my rules. I think if you go back here to Brad's rules here.
Oh boy.
Yeah, rule 17: expectation leads to disappointment.
we need a copy of that for the website.
Yeah, number 2 is probably going to be your favorite. If you're going to eat poop, eat your own.
Well, I thank you. I'll keep that in mind in the future.
It's a good rule. It's very steadfast. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking about eating poop, my next comment will probably be the equivalent of that. But this is probably my least favorite of the first 5 Metallica albums.
Really? How come?
Albums. Outside of Battery and the title track, I think Ed mentioned it. A lot of the sludgier, slower songs just kind of have never done it for me. I don't know why. And I listened back to the album today and I was like, man, it just doesn't grab me the same way that Ride the Lightning does, or Injustice, or, because I like a lot of that faster paced stuff that they've done. So, just my weird taste in music. So,
Hey, no, that's a valid thing, though. I mean, we've talked about this often. If you like something, you like something. Music to me is like food. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. Yeah. And we shouldn't. People shouldn't feel bad for not liking something, or liking something for that matter. If it's just we should all enjoy music and enjoy the music we like,
and probably and this is probably too much information for most people, but I did lose my virginity to this album. So
to which one? Battery?
Wow.
What song?
Wow.
What song?
Yeah, this is one of the short ones, right?
It wasn't 7 minutes of Masters.
no.
That was fast, Brett.
Sanitarium. It was Sanitarium.
Oh, wow.
Had
Wow.
the person that was
now I have to listen to this album.
Are you sure it wasn't? Are you sure the lady who was on the other end wasn't it the thing that?
Well, we won't get into that.
No.
Oh man, Johan is covering his eyes.
No, I think this is another topic for another podcast, Victor. What song got you sexy?
Oh boy.
I'll get to talk about Rain and Blood again.
Oh.
Come on, hey Edgar, why don't you chime in? Tell us. Oh wait, are you still a virgin, Edgar?
Let's not put gas on the fire there, Brad. Oh man.
If Edgar's in the UK, he's probably gone to sleep by now.
Perhaps.
It is.
But
No,
he's there. He's there.
Cheeky sod. There you go.
Yeah.
So so Metallica dethrones Iron Maiden.
I don't even know what's real anymore.
You don't know what's up or what's down.
Yeah, there you go.
I thought Maiden would win because of Victor's non-favorable opinion of Master. So I'm a bit surprised.
Like I
Master Puppets fans overcame your votes.
Yeah, like I said, Master of Puppets wasn't on 3 lists, I think, but on every list
It's
that it
still one.
appeared, it was 1 or 2. I think
Wow.
maybe one of the lists it was somewhere in the middle. But for most people, it was close to the top, and that's usually what it takes to win this. So, and I think a lot of people, again, I think the Maiden album was kind of I think that the Maiden album was kind of one that if you go back and look at it again, you look at their streak of albums, and with those classic albums all the way up to Seventh Son, to me it's the weakest of the lot, but is what it is. Yeah, and with a lot of these albums, like I said, whether it comes to the Priest, whether it comes to the Bon Jovi, they were all over TV. They were all over. They were all over the radio as well. So I think that has a lot to do with people's voting. And again, like I said, we had Peter Gabriel, we had Genesis, we had Billy Idol, we had Beastie Boys, Transformers, the Smithereens, Depeche Mode. And even
Why didn't we have Killer? How come nobody voted for Killer Dwarfs? Stand Tall.
yeah, Killer Dwarfs is another.
That's
Hey,
a good album.
I know somebody who probably would have voted for it, but they didn't.
Yeah,
vote.
it was in my. I had it in my 15. I couldn't get it in, but
Okay.
there
How
are
about-
some outstanding tracks on that one.
How
Here's
about
one
Triumph,
that
Triumph, The Sport of Kings? Did anybody like that one?
No.
No.
It's a good. No, it's a good album, but it's not top 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough.
Well-
It didn't. It's on my list, but it didn't make my top 10. So but
here's
I thought it was a good album.
here's one for you guys that was on nobody's list. And it was close to being in my 10. Was Yngwie Malmsteen's trilogy.
Good one. Good one.
Yeah.
was
Yngwie
that one?
Malmsteen's trilogy has the song Liar, has The Queen Is in Love, has
You don't remember.
I'll Never Forget. It has Fire as well. I mean, that is probably his best album, just on those songs alone. Johan is thinking about it, and I mean, Odyssey is probably his most popular album. But
That's the
those-
Joe Lynn Turner one, right?
what's that?
Joe Lynn Turner is on Odyssey. Is that
Joe
right?
Lynn Turner's on
Yeah.
Odyssey, but
And
I
then
think
this is okay. What's
Jeff
his
Scott
name?
Soto.
Jeff Scott Soto's on this.
is
Yeah.
it Jeff Scott Soto or Mark Bowles?
Mark Bowles, it could be. Yeah.
I got to listen to this one too. Then
Anyways, it's a great
Can I
album.
jump in here for a second? Victor, do you see what Anthony there said when I asked him what his number one record?
Yeah, he said Slayer.
Yeah, just wanted to point that out. That number one, he said.
Well, I'll tell
awesome.
you this. When I was compiling the list, the first half of the list all voted for Slayer.
Yeah.
Back half, nobody voted for Slayer. So
What
it
about
was,
your kids?
um,
Any Slayer for your kids?
let's see, my kids. My youngest son did Master of Puppets, Who Made Who, Peace Sells, Somewhere in Time, Turbo, Ultimate Sin, QR3, 5150, Rage for Order, and Slippery When Wet.
Nice. What about the other one? What'd he do?
His number 1 was The Final Countdown. Number 2 was Turbo. Number 3 is Master of Puppets. Number 4 is Inside the Electric Circus. Number 5, Somewhere in Time. Number 6, QR3. Number 7, 5150. Number 8, Sepultura's Morbid Visions.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Number 9, Peace Sells. And number 10, The Ultimate Sin.
wow,
That's cool. And they're making you listen to 5150 too. Both of them.
So there you go. Crimson Glory is, let's see, it was 27, Anthony. So,
Did
yeah,
anyone vote? Did anyone vote for Black Sabbath 7-star?
see, that's
No.
another one. 7 stars,
Oh,
another
wow.
one that I'm surprised nobody voted for.
Great album. Love it.
And
Says Johan.
Trilogy is Mark Bowles on lead vocals.
Yep.
Yeah, I saw that.
Maybe it was the album cover that kept that off the list.
No, the
Yeah.
album cover's kind of cool. The 3-headed
Really?
dragon that he's fighting
Okay.
off with the Strat.
Yeah. That's exactly it. Yeah, when I get attacked, I'm going to call Yngwie and tell him to bring his guitar. Okay.
Well, he's got to unleash the fucking fury.
Oh, there you go.
So, on that note, folks, I do want to thank everyone who has joined us tonight. We had Edgar Winterson in the chat. We had Bill Elam in the chat. We had Tony in the chat. John Ross. We also had Anthony Mackie. And it sucks that we couldn't get his audio or video to work. We got to make sure this works for the next time around.
Definitely.
And,
We need Anthony.
yeah, absolutely. His comments are always valued.
You're on
They're always
point.
appreciated. So, also want to thank you guys, Johan, Metal Dan, Jerry, Brad, and Ed for being here. There you go.
That was my takeaway, is I had to go back and watch that video because of Victor saying that freaking line.
There you
That
go.
is hilarious.
Doctor
You gotta
says
go
I
back.
have to take laxatives. That's in my story, you don't.
So I had a little sidebar with myself, and I had to check out. I got myself in trouble there with some audio, and check out that Spanish version. You got to play that for your kids because it's amazing. It's so well done. So I got to listen to the David Lee Roth "Eat 'Em a Smile" album again and again. Thanks, Victor.
There you go. That's the reason why we do this. So
That video is amazingly awesome. You got to watch it again.
both of them, those two, and the Just a Gigolo video as well. I mean, those first few David Lee Roth videos were all super entertaining. They were funny. They were, it was, as a
Oh,
kid, it was what you wanted,
That was the reason why I listened to Victor to begin with in his shows and his podcasts. Back in the day, he could be really, it comes from nowhere, and he would throw in these things randomly, and I would laugh. And I miss that stuff.
Yeah. Mr. Picasso, are there any places you can't quite reach with the washcloth? Pushes the guy out of the way. Anyway, thank you everyone who is here tonight. Thank you everyone watching live, watching the replay, listening to the replay. The podcast version will be slightly late for this. I'm sorting some things out. We first have to put up that September albums review, which the podcast version is not out yet, but will be out shortly, hopefully in the next few days. And then it'll be followed by
Everybody
this.
needs to listen to that, by the way. It's excellent.
Awesome. Glad you enjoyed it.
Loved it.
On that note, folks, we will see you next time right here on Signals from Mars. See ya.
Thank you for watching the Signals from Mars live stream. You can watch the show live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, or check out replays on YouTube. Go to signalsfrommars.com for more information. This concludes our show.